My top 3 base products in each category: liquids versus creams versus powders. Starting with liquids, these are my favorite liquid highlighters, and I prefer a bit of coverage to blur out my texture because I don't have the most perfect skin. This is an example of the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter, and the next one is the Dior Star Filter, which also has a bit of coverage, so there's still a blurring effect to this one. The shade does not have coverage, nor is it blurring, but it has an ethereal glow and it's very lightweight. The next one is liquid skin tints, and I do love sheer bases that just evens out the skin tone. This one from Makeup Forever is quite new. It's very natural, quite dewy, so I love this for every day. This one from Hourglass is a bit more thicker. I think it has more of a blurring effect and a bit more coverage as well. This is a recent obsession. It's quite finicky because it's thick, it's so nourishing, and it's quite grippy, but I love that. Moving on to my favorite liquid foundations as of the moment. I don't mind something that's not full coverage, just a bit blurring, and this is the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk, which is so skin-like. Just be careful if you have dry skin. Then I have a holy grail for winter. If you have the driest skin with heavy dry patches, this is a holy grail. And then this Haus Labs foundation, which is a bit in between. It has more hydration but a beautiful medium coverage. Next up is liquid concealers. Now I don't really have a lot of discoloration under my eyes, but I do want hydration, and this Givenchy concealer does that. It's very hydrating. I recommend for dry skin. Now this next concealer is quite thick. I love this during humid weather, but especially for spot concealing. And now an affordable option in Sephora. This is a Tower 28 concealer, which is so hydrating but also very full coverage. Now we have liquid blushes, which I love using winter or when I want my flush to look skin-like. The first one is a serum formula, so it is thinner than a regular liquid blush, but I love the impact of the pigment with a thinner formula. Of course, the infamous Rare Beauty blush. I love the matte version because it's a bit more blurring. And then we have the Say Dewy blushes. I'm a bit late on this one, but it's definitely worth the hype. The next category is liquid bronzer, and I find that you need the right formula, especially for liquids, for it not to be patchy with application. This is a glossy liquid bronzer, which is so skin-like. It's neither too dewy nor too matte. Then the Westman Atelier, which is the matter version, but it makes the bronzer look so natural. Then the Makeup by Mario, which is so natural and sheer. You can build it up to the level that you want slowly. Finally, we're in the cream section, and these are my favorite cream highlighters. I know it's supposed to be 3, but I honestly only like this 2 from what I've tried in Sephora. This is the Merit highlighter, which is more of a balm texture, and it's so emollient. I love this for my dry skin in winter. And then the Westman Atelier highlighter stick is also one of my favorites for an emollient finish. And next up is cream foundations, which I do prefer when I want to even out my texture. The first one is from Patrick Ta. This cream in this foundation duo is amazing. And then the Dior foundation stick, of course, it went recently viral, I think last year. Then the Ilia stick, which is my Tom Ford stick replacement now that it's discontinued. Then for cream concealers, the same thing happened. I could only find 2 that I love from what I've tried in Sephora. The rest are similar to the complexion sticks, where it's a multi-stick. This is Glossier, and this is one of my holy grail in winters. And then the next one is from NARS, which is more for spot concealing because it's quite thick. I don't really use it on my under eyes alone. Cream blushes are one of my favorites for a natural blur, and these are my top 3. The first is from Westman Atelier. I love the shades because they're soft but punchy at the same time, and it's also multi-stick. And this is from MAC. This is one of my recent favorites. It's such a good formula. Now we have the Patrick Ta blush duos, specifically in the cream because it is less pigmented for my skin tone. Now these are my top 3 blush bombs. These are more emollient than the last category and usually in a multi-stick formula. I love this one from Danessa Myricks. It's so blurring and beautiful on the cheeks. And then this one from Haus Labs. It's so dewy but also very pigmented. Then lastly, the one from Merit. It's more sheer and buildable but still so pretty. Moving on to my favorite cream bronzers as of the moment. These are all in stick formats. And the first one is from LYS. It's so creamy. Some may say it may be too creamy, but it's very good for dry skin. Then Merit, which is quite sheer, but again, so buildable and good for dry skin. Then we have Rare Beauty, which is more blurring. I love this for a natural finish. I don't really prefer cream contours because I believe a shadow shade should be matte, but these are a few of the creams that I like. This is Danessa Myricks in a Balm formula, specifically in the shade Fair. And then from Sephora, this is their contour stick. It may be too dewy for others. And lastly, the Fenty Beauty contour stick, which is one of my favorites because it's quite matte. Now for powders. No one really prepares you how much you love and actually need powders as you age. These are my favorite powder highlighters. Now a powder formula will be more intense, like this Pat McGrath powder highlighter. The Dior one is a bit silky, so less intense, but still there in terms of pigmentation, as well as the Hourglass highlighters. But I love them when I want a real pop of glow. And for pressed powders, these are my favorites. My absolute favorite is from Charlotte Tilbury, and it's because it has talc. It's so blurry and lasts all day. This one from Kosas is quite natural. I only really love this during winter. And then we have the Pat McGrath blurring under eye powder, which has a beautiful blur but doesn't last because there's no talc. Loose powders are more heavy duty than pressed powder, so I have to be careful on my dry skin. My first favorite is from Huda Beauty, which is a talc loose powder that's so blurring and just stays throughout the day. As you age, I think talc is essential with makeup if you want to blur your pores. Now, if you want something talc free, you can use the Mario one, but you know, the texture will show out throughout the day because it's just, there's no talc in it. Fenty, I think this has talc. I've recently been loving this as well. Before it used to be so drying. Then we have my favorite matte powder blushes. I had to divide the powder blushes into 3 categories because I just love them too much. The first is from Givenchy, beautiful soft shades. And then we have the House Labs. The only ick is that they downsize for almost the same price. And then the Pat McGrath is one of my favorites. This is the matte version. Then we have my favorite glowy powder blushes, which to be honest, I use more as a topper because sometimes the glow is just too intense to pack it on your cheeks. This is one of my recent favorites, which is from Say. And then we have Hourglass, which is my holy grail glowy powder blush. And then Valentino, this might be too glowy for me just because it's a bit pigmented. Then we have my favorite Demi Matte powder blushes, which is more of a soft sheen than an actual glowy shimmer. My first favorite is from Dior. I love the shades. I love the buildable pigment. However, it just hard pans too fast. Now this is the Demi Matte version of Pat McGrath. Love the formula as well as this Gucci powder blush. It's so ethereal. Now for powder contours, I only have 2, and the reason being is that I have more K-beauty options because it's just more affordable. Sephora is a bit more limited to this category. This is from Sephora Collection, and then we have the powder component in the Iconic Contour Duo. I love this one so much. Then for powder bronzers, the last category, Fenty Beauty is so soft with their powder bronzers. I also love the Gucci one. I think it's worth it with the packaging and the formula. More of a flat matte, and then this is a glowy version, which is again one of my holy grails. I just love Hourglass powders. That's everything for today. Happy shopping, guys. Bye.